Welcome into Triple Zeros, the anti-hot take sports show. I am your host, Josh Buckhalter. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. The website is clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. No, it's not. It's contact@clockersports.com. I do that all the time. As you know, we cover a wide variety of topics. It's been very heavy on the NFL and the Bears lately, but basketball season is right around the corner. There was media day across the NBA on, I want to say Monday, but I know it was on Tuesday. No, it was on Monday because then camps open on Tuesday. And so with that, I have a very special guest on, Edwin Powell, E-Dub of the Hawksbeat Podcast, is joining me to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, break down some of the season, what we expect, what we're looking forward to, what we're maybe a little bit nervous about, and stuff like that. So first and foremost, E-Dub, welcome to the show, bro. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Hey, man, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate the invite.
Oh man, anytime. He was very gracious to have me on the show, and then as you guys know, I was very spotty with my production, so it's been a while trying to get him on the show. We finally linked up, and no better time than right now. We were just talking about this off camera with the optimism and things going on, and the excitement right now. Sports. If you're a sports fan, this is the time. You got college football, you have NFL football, MLB playoffs, NBA is right about to start up. This is a great time for sports, and then you got hockey if you like hockey too. So there's something for everybody right about now, but. As I said, we are here to talk about the Hawks, who are coming off a 41-41 season, a season that saw them change up their front office, change over their head coach. Quinn Snyder took over after the All-Star break. I believe it was 10-11 record during the regular season, and then they ended up getting bounced in the first round of the postseason by the Boston Celtics in 6 games. This offseason, the biggest news was them trading John Collins to the Utah Jazz. Collins has since sent a couple of shots, a couple of subliminals back to the Hawks way. So, you know, that's happened. Other than that, though, it's been a largely quiet and an offseason where you can tell the Hawks are maybe hoping for some internal development this year as they take a step forward. And so with that, I want to just ask you, what did you think about the Hawks offseason?
I found it very interesting because, I mean, it seems like for John's whole career, he was part of trade rumors. And so to finally make the trade, and really get 50 cents on the dollar and a pack of gummy bears. Like, it was kind of anticlimactic. But I mean, John is a great locker room guy, and I wish him the best in Utah. The locker room, I'll tell you what, man, the locker room is going to be different without John. But I think the Hawks are kind of banking on the development of the young guys. And it looks like they're trying to do addition by subtraction because they didn't bring in another big fish. So it's going to be crazy to see who is Trey going to throw those lobs to. You know, who's going to be the rah-rah guy in the locker room, because that's who John Collins was, and that's what he brought to the team. And also, he was a very undervalued defender. He wasn't a stopper, but he was very undervalued as a defender. So it's going to be interesting without number 20 in a Hawks uni.
I think it's notable. He was mentioned. I mean, they were asked, but he was mentioned, and they talked about Landry Fields talked about needing to replace him on the court, and he mentioned that defense that I think a lot of people kind of took for granted because he wasn't doing the scoring stuff that they wanted him to do. But the versatility that Collins offered you was probably something that you're going to be hard pressed to replicate. Fields, as you noted, looking for the younger guys, did mention that they are excited about Jalen Johnson. Anybody that follows my writing over at Soaring Down South knows that I've been a Jalen Johnson fan since before he was even drafted. So I loved when I heard him say that they are really excited about the development that he's had. Jalen underwent some training with LeBron James this offseason. That can only help you. So looking forward to that myself. And then Trey. The Trey thing is interesting because Trey has stayed above ground. He said it's been tough losing John. And he talked about how his lobs are gonna have to go from being dunks to being layups now. But Collins kind of sent back those shots, man. What did you make of the Collins comments? Not once, but twice about how, different style play. He felt like he was stunted in the Hawks. What did you make of all of that?
I thought it was spicy. Like, when I retweeted it, I just put the little chili spicy peppers in there. I didn't really even have any comment for it. But listen, man, to understand everything John has been through, like, this man has been consecutively in trade rumors for like at least 3 to 4 years, consistently. And every time at the last minute, they're like, nope, we still love you, only to turn around and put him back in trade rumors again. So for him not to even take any underhanded shots, for him not to throw any passive aggressive tweets out, like, I mean, it's I mean, I expected more. I thought it was kind of tame, but I like the storyline. I like the juice. I thought, hey man, that's par for the course, man. Y'all took this man through it, and he's giving a little shout out, and so that's what it is, you know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been about 3, 4 years of consistent trade rumors. I remember people would get upset, why are you constantly talking about him? Like, because that's what's being talked about. Like, that's the whispers going around. He did say that he's got the game in February circled on his calendar, so there'll be some fireworks going on there for sure. I'm sure he'll be trying to get some dunks on some people's heads there on that night.
Oh yeah, watch out, what is coming.
That does lead though. What are your expectations for this season? Like I said, 41-41 last year, 10-11 off of Snyder, 6 games in the postseason before they got bounced. What are you expecting from them this season?
Um, I look at it like this. Last year was 41-41. They were the definition of mid. They were the definition of win, lose one, win, lose one, lose two, win two, lose three, win three. Like that's what they were all season. And I think that going into this year, you look at what they're bringing back. I think for as good as Nate McMillan is, and I was probably I'm not going to say a fan of his, but I was kind of higher on Nate McMillan more so than the fan base. I thought he was an acceptable coach, but I did also think he had to go. I think you have a better coach. I think year two of Trey and DeJounte will be better. So putting those two things together, I think the John Collins thing is going to be interesting. But I think that if you slide in a guy like maybe Sadiq Bey into that lineup at the four, if all you're looking for is a stretch four to shoot from that corner ball pocket, like that 3-pointer from the side, like Sadiq's your guy. The only deficit is his defense is atrocious. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But I think, of course, pending health, this is the first season you have Bogey that's healthy in the offseason. So you have all of those things that I listed as a net positive. And so I would give them an additional 4, maybe 5 wins at least. I think they'll be above 500. I think that even if you're looking at, best situation possible, they could be knocking on a 5 or a 4 because you have instability in Philadelphia right now with James Harden. You don't know what he's going to do. You look at all the teams that were above them last year. Brooklyn, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Are you a believer in that again? The Knicks, it's not a lot of certainty outside of like Boston and Milwaukee, who just going to be there. So I think they'll be better. I think they'll be better. I think, like DeJounte said, the opportunity for a play-in is not even negotiable. You can't do that. So they got to be better. They got to be. So I would give them at least 4 or 5 wins off top, off of those things that just which I named.
And it's funny because when you think about it the way you just laid it out there, they went 41-41 amid all of those things. Bogey being hurt, Collins still being on the team, and there being that underlying, tension, the newness of the Trey and DeJounte backcourt. All those things were happening, the turmoil in the front office and all of that stuff, and they still managed to find a way to sneak into the playoffs, which is a lot more than many other teams in the NBA could say. I did find it, I guess let me start with this. My outlook is very similar to yours. And I think that depending on their matchup, we could see another surprising run from this team in the postseason, depending on what path they have to take. A lot of what we saw from DeJounte and Trey was literally that unfamiliarity with each other. And I think the way that you've seen them gone about the offseason has been I knew what to expect from DeJounte, but I think Trey's kind of put action behind words, and he's been around more, tried to be a more available teammate, as it were. So that can only benefit. And then the Quinn Snyder factor, I think, is when Trey said he was a game changer and towards the end of the season, I think that may have been in his exit interview, maybe it was an offseason interview, whatever it was. Trey named Quinn Snyder as a potential game changer. And then you saw Snyder and DeJounte chatting it up during Summer League. That bond was never there with Nate McMillan. Like, even if we saw them joking around, you didn't see that kind of it's not friendship because we know that there's a hierarchy there, but we didn't see that kind of connection. I'll call it that. And so
even when it was at its top, even when it's at its peak, there was still no love. You know what I'm saying? Like a Chris Paul and Monty Williams. It was never like that. It was like, okay, it's still what it is, but we never saw that.
And then you got Snyder bringing in his staff, and he's so deliberate in the building of his staff that it gave me confidence hearing him speak about it. And then when he got to Epke Udo and talking about how he wanted him to kind of be the liaison between the players and the coaches, like that wasn't something that they were talking about. You know what I mean? That wasn't something that was being discussed for this group. So you still have the connection with Kyle Korver, even though he's the assistant general manager. Like he's working with players directly. There's a different kind of strategy here that gives me confidence that if plan A doesn't work, they're already ready with plan B. If plan B doesn't work, they're already ready with plan C. That kind of foresight that maybe was not there with this last round of rash moves. You know, look, they're trying to unload Capella. They're trying to unload Capella, trying to unload DeAndre Hunter because of his contract. This feels like they're kind of being a little bit more deliberate about how they're going about it so that they don't have to kind of reset that quickly off of success like they did. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that is maybe I think that's the handprint of the new GM, Landry. This is kind of his first full thing into it because he was a GM last year, but you still had Travis as that principal over him. And everything they've talked about, all of the language and verbiage that you've heard from Landry has all been like, we need to fix the internal workings of how we operate, how we operate and how we communicate. Because in the old regime, it was a lot of passive aggressive type stuff. Trey would kind of say stuff, kind of hinting at stuff. Nate McMillan would kind of have press conferences with more. It was a lot of passive aggression between all of those guys. And as media, you could see it, you could feel it. You could feel it in that presser. You know what I mean? You would be in the press room and you would just feel like you could feel the tension, And, I think Landry understood that. And so even I saw a photo the other day about even in the facility now, there's like couches by the court, you know what I'm saying, for them to like watch and observe and to, just, everything's changing. And I think that's a credit to Landry. So it seems like a net positive. I don't say you can see anything wrong from that.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I guess I waxed on poetically about it, but I'm at the bottom line is I just don't see a negative. That's all. Maybe you don't see the positive as strongly as I do, but there can't be a negative to any of that. What maybe has you most excited about this coming season?
I think year 2 of the Trey and DeJounte, and I'm a big fan of good backcourts, to be honest with you. I'm a fan of the NBA. I'm a big fan of, John Wall and Bradley Beal in their heyday, Dame and CJ. I mean, shoot, go back to Magic and Norm. Show my name, Magic and Norm Nixon. Like, I love a good backcourt tandem, and I'm excited about what it could be. I don't know what it will be. I'm excited about what it could be. Because it could be very well. And I mean, and arguably, you could argue that that is the best backcourt in the NBA. Of course, you got the guys in Dallas and those guys and everything, but you have a strong argument for those two guys if they play up to their ability. And I think that they'll both tell you, man to man, that they have to be better than they were last year. For Trey, he has to, and I said this on my pod yesterday. Trey has to be better. He has to be the best player on the court more often than not. And fair or not, that's just what it is. When the other team comes into your arena, too many times last year, the best player was on the other side of the ball, and that can't happen. Like, you got to be the best player. And on those nights that he's not the best player, the DJ's got to stick up, and he's got to be that guy. Too many 15 points, 16 points, and not being efficient. Too many Trey turnovers down the stretch. You got to be better, So that's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think the thing that has me excited most about them is their attitude towards it. Despite not having the instant success, they both seem so determined to make it work that, again, I can't see that being a negative.
Yeah.
The lack of offense, right? When you talked about how sometimes Trey didn't have those nights, and that's when DeJounte had to step up. That's where I think Snyder can step in, and his ability to kind of diagram some offense up for them, generate some points for them when they necessarily don't have it going. That's going to be beneficial. The biggest thing, I think, the thing I'm most excited about is some stability. Just not having all those that outside, all that stuff, Collins, all those things not there. The distractions can kind of be gone, and they can focus on trying to prove the doubters wrong, trying to prove themselves right more. Let me put it that way. And so I'm really excited just to see what they can do when they don't have turmoil all around them. Like they've had, again, that Collins, like you said, has been going on for 4 years. So that's always been an underlying issue.
And it's gotta be unnerving. Like, is this guy gonna be here? And it's not like he's the guy who don't get no burn. It'd be different. It was the guy who, like, this is an integral part of your team. Like, he's part of the core. And to have him on the blocks and to have is the coach gonna be here? Is he not gonna be here? Like, it was a lot. And so there's stability there. There is health there for the first time in seasons. Bogey's healthy. I mean, a couple years ago, a Kongu was out. John had that thumb. Like, for the
Clint's
first
been
time,
dealing
they're
with stuff for
healthy.
years.
Yeah, so for the first time, they're healthy. So Hawks fans have plenty of reasons to be excited. Even if they didn't have plenty of reasons to be excited, they would be excited.
That's a true story.
That is
That's
a
a true story.
very, as you know, that is a very unique fan base.
Oh,
That's
love
how.
them. The passion there is different because it's so you get a lot of fan bases that talk about suggestions, right? They offer, man, I want my team to do this. With Hawks fans, no, it needs to do. This is what needs to happen. This is it. There is no other path other than the path that I'm laying out. It's great. It's great, man. Love conviction.
Bro, it can be a dark place. I mean, like, if you go in the Hawks Twitter on Reddit, it could be a dark place,
Yeah,
man. And I just be like, yo, I know my lane. I used to try to engage some of those folks anymore, but like,
they got too much energy,
folks,
man.
nuance gets lost online, right? And so I'm a big jokester, and folks don't like, if you don't know me, you don't know. Like, I'll be joking. And then, I have people in my mentions at like 3 a.m. like still waxing poetic. Like, yo, what are you talking about? I was just joking. So Hawks fans are a special breed. I enjoy them. I appreciate them because they support my podcast. They supported my brand for going on 10 years. So they're a special group of people, man. But I know my boundaries and I know my limits.
Shout out to Hawks fans, man. Now, we just pumped y'all up, but we're about to let you down. What has you most concerned about this season?
Oh, I mean, obviously the defense. I'm an old school guy, and I've always been concerned with defense and the lack of, and not even necessarily like you got to be a lockdown defender. Like, what has concerned me has just been like the effort defensively. Like, I haven't really been appreciative of that in a while. Um, and to give a little perspective, that's not just the Hawks. That's like NBA. Like, nobody in the league plays D no more, man. Like, it's wild. And like, that bothers me. It's like, okay, yeah, we put up 135, and that's good until you give up 142. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can't be doing that. Like, you can't be doing that. Like, there's got to be some point in some time where you have to get stops. And when you look at championship teams, even the Denver Nuggets, for as much as they talk about Jokic, very little was paid attention to how well they were defensively. I'm trying to think of the power four. Aaron Gordon, he's one of the best defensive fours out there. Very good defender. Like, they play really solid defense. Not great, but it's solid. The Milwaukee Bucks, when they went on their run, of course, they had Giannis, but you had Drew, and they had guys. When you need to get a stop, you need to get a stop. And that is one thing that concerns me about this Hawks team, because I don't know what they are defensively. I just don't.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. There is maybe a lack of that kind of versatility that you see with some of the great defensive teams where guys are guarding up 2 and 3 spots at a time or down 2 and 3 spots at a time to kind of make up for the lack from some of their teammates. You don't really get that with the Hawks, where guys are is kind of where they are defensively. And so I totally agree that there's a big question mark. It's just maybe not how good they can be, but what they are. Like, what kind of defense do you even want to be?
Yeah, and the thing about that, like, is I want to see an identity.
Mhm.
I want to see an identity defensively. Like, you know what you are kind of offensively. It seems like Quinn wants to be. If he wants to run, and gun. He wants to shoot a ton of threes, and I'm all for that. But like, I think defensively, you need an identity. I mean, even the Boston Celtics, even though they fell flat last year, that they didn't make it to the finals, but they had a defensive identity. Marcus Smart and all of those guys are what they're gonna get defensively. And I think if the Hawks are going to have a defensive identity, it's gonna have to start with Clint. It's gonna have to start with the Kongu. On the perimeter, you're gonna have DJ and Hunter. They have to be better defensively. And I think, to a man, they'll tell you they got to be better defensively. But you got to have some type of defensive identity. And I haven't seen that in years from the Hawks. Like there's no moxie. Like you can't just be coming in and throwing hard foul. Like there's got to be a toughness about this team. And I haven't seen it in a while. And I don't know if you will see that, but I think that's what is needed.
I think you just touched on what my biggest concern is, and it's kind of along the same. It's the other side of the blade on the continuity or the quiet around them. Right, they're the same group largely still. How much is really going to change when you're bringing back largely the same group? We're banking a lot on that internal development on Snyder's stamp of on things. So that to me has me concerned because again, right now, optimism is everywhere. Everybody's excited. Everybody is.
Everybody.
So
everybody's going 82-0.
Yeah, and you got Landry talking about how they're comfortable with the roster, which cool, man. That's what you say. That's what you want. You hope that they've built something that they're comfortable with because trades are never guaranteed anyway. So you hope that they're comfortable with what they have. But I am worrisome that the wheels will fall off, and if the wheels fall off, I worry about this team being able to right itself. And what happens if they don't? And that's I think where my ultimate fear lies because I feel like we are getting to that breaking point. Kevin Herter referred to they're making the ECF as a bit of a negative because it kind of sped up their timeline. And I'm in 100% agreement with that. And I think we're kind of pushing up on against that if they don't do something this season.
Yeah, and the thing is this, you wonder like how much is this team built for adversity? Like that's a question, that's a fair question because you have to ask yourself who are the leaders in the locker room, and although Trey is the money man, he's not necessarily like the vocal leader. DeJounte seems like he might be like that, like he's gonna take that John Collins role of the rah-rah and the hoorahs type stuff. It seems like that might be DeJounte. Maybe it's the vets that came in, Patty Mills, Wesley Matthews. Maybe those are the voices. But I was talking to Chris Kirschner when he was covering the team, and he was more embedded to the team than anybody. And I said, "Hey, Chris, what is his team's identity?" And this was maybe about 2 years ago, but relatively a lot of the same guys were here. And he was like, "I don't even know what this team's identity is." And I still think that same sentiment is true. I don't know what the identity is. Hopefully Quinn will install that. Hopefully they will be able to find that, but I don't know I can't tell you unequivocally what it is.
I think you touched on a couple of good things there. First off, when Chris Kirschner was covering the team, people hated him. That is, I've never seen somebody who was giving you more raw truth than anybody and was still getting a lot of the flack online. It was crazy,
bro. Like Chris died on the cross for us, man. Like and folks didn't even realize how good he was until he left. Mm-hmm. Like and I stand with my guy, man. This as a fellow media guy, like. Chris was never here to make you feel good, man. Like I don't know, like what folks thought this was.
That's what they want sometimes, and you can't do that because it's not safe.
Yeah, but like that's not his job. Like
right.
His job was never. And it was like because I knew Chris on a personal basis. I would see him at games. He would sit and talk before the games, and he would just tell me like that's not his job. His job isn't to be concerned about your feelings. His job is to report and to get information and to report stuff.
Well, if he didn't, those same people would be in his mention saying that he wasn't doing his job and they weren't.
Now you got the same people talking about, the Athletic needs to get the Hawks a beat writer because, I'm about to unsubscribe from the Athletic because they don't got a Hawks beat writer. Last one you had, you burned them at the stake. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, shout out to Chris. He's living his best life covering the Knicks, his childhood favorite team. I can imagine he's living the dream right now. A good guy. Never had any problems with Chris. And I stand by all the work that he's ever done for the Athletic. He did superb work, and no one has filled his shoes since.
Shout out. Yeah, now they're kind of hodgepodging, and it's lacking. I'll just say that. Shout out to Chris, man. The other thing that you touched on, though, was the veterans, Patty Mills, the Wes Matthews guys. And we heard Trey say that Wes Matthews gave him some Solomon Hill vibes. I think that's key, man, because when the team was at their peak, they had those vets that they could kind of lean on in those rocky moments. So maybe the top of the group doesn't know how to fight adversity. Those older guys do, and they know how to kind of help you through those moments, and that's I think just as impactful. No.
Yeah, I think that from a vet standpoint, he'll be good. I don't think he's Solomon Hill. I mean, because Solomon Hill was a special dude, and I knew Solomon Hill was special, like on his first media tour when the first time we talked to him, he oozed that old school mentality. And I don't think that Wesley Matthews. That's not a knock on Wesley Matthews, but Wesley Matthews ain't never been like no enforcer or nothing. You know, I think he'll be good for the locker room, but he ain't gonna be no Solomon Hill. But like, it's good though that Trey likes him and that he'll be a good vet in the room.
Yeah, I agree. It's very few veterans in today's NBA are like very few players in general are like Solomon Hill. So I
Yeah, because he had that old school mentality, like you know, in players that they're few and far between that have it. You know.
I agree. I agree. Okay, rapid fire question time, man. You can't
Yeah.
say Trey. You can't say DeJounte. Who is your MVP for the Hawks this season?
Um, Give me a Congo.
Ooh,
A Congo. I think that this is the year that he steps up. He's got to get his bread, and I think folks are gonna like what they see from him.
that leads me to a follow up question then, because I like how you answered that. Does this team that starts the season finish the season? Is it the same group?
I don't know, man. The clock is clicking on Clint, and it may not necessarily be fair, but I mean that's just the nature of the business. You got to pay the young boy. I don't know how you justify paying the young boy and keeping Clint around. I would say no.
Ooh,
I would
okay.
say
I like that. If you had to pick right now, which of the rookies do you think it's gonna be? Kobe, Seth London. You don't have to pick either one of them, but do you think that those which of those three do you think will be the picks? Do you think will be the most impactful rookie?
probably Kobe. It just based on the numbers. I think Seth and the other guy, Mo. I think they'll have a lot of time in College Park, and I think that whatever minutes are left over, Kobe will get those. Although I don't think it'll be many. I don't think you'll see Kobe a lot this year.
I can agree with that wholeheartedly. I think you kind of alluded to it, but who do you have starting at power forward?
I kind of yeah. I think that Sadiq Bey will start over Jalen, uh, just because if for no other reason, I think he's a vet, and I think that you know he can kind of get in there and scrap and make do. And Jalen is the perfect complement to come out this year and to really assert himself with that second unit. Him and Okongu have a nice chemistry together, so I don't think they really kind of want to break that up right now. Maybe in the future, maybe we have a Okongu, Jalen Johnson starting tandem. You know, maybe in the next year or so. You know, um, yeah. So that's kind of my take on.
I'm really excited for Jalen with that second group because they don't really have a true playmaker at point guard, so he'll get plenty of opportunity to kind of create for himself and
Absolutely,
others.
absolutely.
And then last question, I'll have it right here. You said that you have them getting about 4 or 5 more wins. What do you see for them in the postseason?
Oh man, that's tough because it's so much. Um, it's so much that could happen. You know, like the only constants I see right now is like Milwaukee and Boston. I think everything else is really up for grabs. I still think Cleveland is very good. I don't know if they can hop them. Um, Philly, what is James Harden going to do? He doesn't show up to media day, but he's in practice today. Like, what are they going to do? What are they going to be? You know, that's not consistency. That's not stable. Like, you catch them slipping, like the NBA is a league where you can drop. You know, we've already talked about Brooklyn and New York and all those other teams. Like it's there. Like I can see a possible 5 seed for this team, like realistically. And that's not even me. Like I'm not even a fan. Like I mean I can realistically see if the wheels turn, they can get that 5 seed.
I wholeheartedly agree. I don't see any reason why they take a step back if everything, like we said, works out. Listen, Collins is going to be a big loss, but I have a lot of faith in what they're bringing back, and I do have some faith in the development, especially with how we talked about the infrastructure now being a little bit more sound and stable. So I think that the like DeJounte said, I don't think playing is an option for this group. That is
Nah,
not.
man, like this city will implode if they have to make the play on. Like the expectations are high. Like they're really high for this team, for a team that went 41-41. And notably so because you're spending a lot of bread. You spend a lot of bread, and last year was very underachieving. And so, hey, yeah, expectations are high. These fans, listen, let this team get off to a 5-7 start. Boy, listen, Twitter will be on fire. Like there's very little room. You know what I'm saying? There's very little room. You better start fast, brother. And like, I'm telling. I'm telling you, I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know.
So I wrote about Landry's comments saying that he was comfortable with the group, and that was the caption. Like, man, they just got to get off to a fast start because you could even hear it in there. Like, if things don't go right, you could see something. Maybe not something major, but there's gonna be some changes made and some
Bro,
furniture
you
moved.
know what the chatter is going to be. If they get off the first 10 games less than 100, they're going to be wanting to get Clint up out of here. Because listen, every year there is a whipping boy.
Mm-hmm.
Every year there is a whipping boy. That's just the nature of sports. For the last several years, it's been John Collins. Before John Collins, it was Nate McMillan's. It was all the coaches. I go all the way back to Josh Smith. Like, that's how long I've been
My
doing
boy
this.
Jay Smooth.
There's always a whipping boy. And this year, I think the whipping boy is probably going to be Clint. It's going to be between Clint and DeAndre Hunter. Those two. Because folks got some heat for DeAndre Hunter, boy. Let me tell you something. There's a certain faction of Hawks fans that cannot stand DeAndre Hunter.
And you hear the reasons. It's the draft selection, and that they feel like he's been stagnant. They're not accounting that he's taking on the toughest matchup every night. That doesn't matter to anybody.
And it's funny because I go to bat for DeAndre. I like DeAndre Hunter. He was sold to us as a game-changing defensive 3-and-D guy. Mm-hmm. Is he a game changer? No. But is he good?
Yes.
Yes. He's
and getting
good.
Better still.
And he's still getting better, but he's not. They sold it to the Hawks fans as this guy is going to be a great defender. And he hasn't really been great. He's been good. Like, when Bron comes to town, who's getting that assignment? DeAndre Hunter. When the best player comes in 9 times out of 10, DeAndre Hunter is going to be on that guy. And so, listen, it's all fun and games, and you guys want him out of town. It's all fun and games when he's out of town, and then you got to throw bogey on him. And then, like, what are you going to do? You know, he's the best perimeter defender you have outside of maybe DJ. You can argue. But DeAndre Hunter is still your best perimeter defender. I know he's not great, but he's still very good, and guys like him are hard to find. Yes, he dribbles like Stanley from The Office, and he cannot shoot at his shot selection is porous at best. Hopefully Quinn can rectify that. Hopefully he can play with a little bit more confidence. He's got to get that defensive swagger back, but it hasn't been a failure like defensively. Like, he's still been good. So that's my little diatribe on DeAndre Hunter. But there is a faction of Hawks fans that cannot stand him. And as soon as they start losing games, mark my word, all of the hate will go to DeAndre Hunter. Secondly, Clint Capella. And when it happens, I'm just gonna quote tweet it, and I'm gonna QT it, and I'm gonna tag you, and I'm gonna say, hey, you remember this conversation we had back in October? Boom.
I wish I could disagree, man, but if that's not accurate, nothing is. That's exactly how it's going to play out. We've seen it play out before, and it'll play out that way again. Edwin Powell, man, you were great. Thank you so much for joining me. Follow him on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hawksbeat. Listen to the Hawksbeat Podcast. And, man, again, like I said, thank you so much for joining me, brother. It was great.
No doubt, man. I got to return the favor come season time, man. Keep on doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate you.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, Clocker Sports. Email address is contact@clockersports.com. And, of course, you can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at 30spod. That's the number 3, zeros in pod. Again, that's Edwin Powell, E-Dub, Hawksbeat Podcast, at Hawksbeat. And until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. We gone.